at down.
Okay, we are back
downtown
after a
zoning.
short break, for our town board, work session of November first, and we will be doing, the, preliminary budget, presentation, so, we have it up on the board, I believe we've distributed a copy. So, if we can turn to page 2, which is of the budget goals, which is improve public safety and code enforcement, we have technology upgrades in there, water quality improvements, it's a conservative balanced budget. The budget also supports more effective usage of town assets and remains within the tax cap. Slide 2, is the Riverhead taxes by percentage. So basically, this is for every property tax dollar, approximately 60% of it goes to the school district and libraries, approximately 6 cents, goes to highway, street lighting, and Suffolk County.
6 cents?
Yeah. About, a little over 10 cents goes to other funds, and out of that, only 23 cents goes to the town general fund. So next, we have our town operating
So
budget.
my taxes are 23 cents this year, is that what you're saying? Cause people are gonna read into this and say,
Only 23%, 23 cents of it will go to the town general fund.
I don't know if I can quite follow this without you standing on a chair next to the screen over there pointing at things, but I'll do my best.
Do you want me to?
I remember that.
Are you going through it again, or this is it, cause you're going so fast?
I'll go slow, I'll slow down, okay? So then we have the total town operating budget. So the total expenses for the town including, which includes all town functions, and special districts, including highway, police, water, sewer, street lighting, et cetera. You name it, everything that's going on is included in this. So this is total expenses of, $97,609,700. And of that, the estimated revenue that we have coming in from these districts is $39,757,800. And then in the district, we have appropriated fund balance from special districts and the community preservation fund of a little over $4 million. So the total town tax levy for all of the special districts as well as the general fund is $53,880,400. And so that's the 2019 tax levy. So if we go on to the next page, this is really the working budget of the town, which is in the general fund. So I'm doing a budget overview of the general fund, which is really the principal operating budget of the town, and this includes things like police, court, buildings and grounds, parks, accounting department, our IT infrastructure, to name a few of those. And then, what we have in there, most of it, 90% of it is obligated, meaning that those are monies that are already, slotted to go somewhere. So we have our contractual costs, which is our salaries and benefits at a little over 39 million. We have our debt service, I know we've talked about it a lot, it's been talked about over the years. And one of the major, sources of our debt service is paying off the landfill debt. So this year, we'll be paying $3,754,000, and $841 to our landfill debt, and that's paying off the bond. And we only have $676,000, a little over $676,000, which is all the other debt, that has been incurred by the town. So that comes up, the debt service is a little over almost $4.5 million. And then we have our other fixed costs, which is our utilities and insurance, which is a little over $1.5 million. So as I said, this obligates about almost 44.5, a little over that, to these obligated costs. So what's left? Really, this discretionary, not the discretionary, but what's left that needs to be covered, really is the vehicle, supplies, fuel, upkeep and the maintenance of buildings, repair of town's facilities, and all the other businesses that are taking place in the town, and that's at about 5.3 million in this year's budget. And this is just a little bit of history of the, general fund balance. Back in about 2011, we had about almost 11.5 million in our general fund balance, and that has been used, quite a bit over the years, and our fund balance now is down to, what do we have, 2.7, 2.5 million at this point. So it puts us in a bit of a precarious position. I mean, most people consider their fund balance their rainy day fund money. which we, as a town our size, really should be having about a 15%, fund balance, which would be somewhere up around 7.5 million, and we do not have that, so the goal of the budgets moving forward is to continue to replenish that fund balance.
So, I'll let you finish and then we'll.
Okay. So what's in this budget and how it supports the goals that, I had stated in the beginning? Things that we have in this budget is public safety and code enforcement. We've improved the public safety in the budget by adding 2 additional police officers and an additional downtown, foot patrol sector, which we had the chief of police come and, present to us a few weeks ago, so this budget is in support of that. It also supports quality of life issues. I know that code enforcement is a big concern, so this supports, an additional code officer for the town. And it's also restructuring some of our practices. So for efficiency and cost savings, what we plan to do is we've budgeted for a part-time person in the town, additional part-time person in the town clerk's office. Last year, we had, put in a part-time person in the town clerk's office, Spanish speaking, to help the office out there. We're adding an additional part-time person to the town, clerks, that will then, we will then move the chapter 255s into the town clerk's office, freeing up one of our paralegals that we have in the attorney's office to be able to address more of the code enforcement issues. So, I think it's a small increase to help improve some of the efficiencies of what we're looking to do in town. And what else do we have in this budget, which is, we've talked about this, this is improving the water quality and supporting our water district. So we've developed and the budget supports, the 10-year infrastructure plan, that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and it also does that by adding 2 additional employees to support the maintenance and the improvements of that district. One of the other things, the big issues here is I think that the budget needs to support technology infrastructure, because I think we need to work efficiently, and all of our departments need to be able to communicate with each other, so that we can improve the way we conduct business. So this budget supports the townwide 3-year system infrastructure and upgrades. The work began this year in 2018 and will continue in 2019, and it will be expected to be completed by 2020. So in this year, we've upgraded our financial software, which is really software that was almost 30 years old.
It was last year, actually.
And well, it was implemented this year. And then we've also had multiple, we've also had multiple department software upgrades, allowing for the integrated communication and efficiency between departments. We've added some BAS programs, we've worded some workflow that will integrate the communications. And then the budget supports, which we had the Total Tech come, about switching to cloud-based hosting, which will increase our cybersecurity, our business continuity, and as well as our disaster recovery. And these upgrades and also upgrades to software to help improve, once again, the town efficiency. And just a couple of the final major budget points, you know, this is a balanced budget, without any fund balance in the general fund. There are no one-shots, in this budget. One of the other things that coming into office, we were out of, compliance with the PBA and SOA contracts. They had not settled for, really almost 2.5 years, so we were able to settle both of those contracts, and be able to support those increases in the budget coming up. We've also, they're contributing to healthcare, so all members of the PEBA who had been contributing 0 to healthcare will now be contributing 15% into their healthcare plans. And we will continue to work with state, county, and federal government to bring tax dollars here to Riverhead. I think in the past year, we have gotten, I think, almost 100,000, 125,000 from the state to help support some of the projects that we have done this year, and we will continue to work very hard to keep bringing those to the town, so the burden doesn't rest on the taxpayer. And this budget continues to support things that we've provided in this town. It's our intergenerational program at the senior center, our recreation programs. We support the Riverhead Youth Court, Police Athletic League, We support our beaches and parks, CAP, the Community Awareness Prevention, Meals on Wheels, and the summer events that we provide to the town. So that is a synopsis of my budget. I think all of you guys received it, several weeks ago.
Very pretty.
I like the new layout. I mean, the book was ridiculous to try and follow, so
Yeah.
the Edmonds program is really a better way to review the budget, in my opinion.
That was a tentative budget, no, it has not changed, yeah.
Well, we did get an amendment on October second, that was for the general fund, that was page 3, that was supplemented on October second.
What one was that, though?
It was put on our chair by the town clerk on October second, and it was increasing the general fund from, I believe, 53,860,000 to 53,900 and, let's see if I can find it.
All right, Laura, I looked through the budget pretty well, I worked with Bill. I know there's some anticipatory income that we're hopeful for. And I don't think it's unreasonable either, to be honest with you. I think part of it has to do with the cell towers. So that's a revenue source that we hope will come in.
Well, actually, we put it out for bid already, we got the bids back. So we have, it's actually there were 4 spots, and the bids that came back on that were $100,000 at each site, and I just included one. I didn't include all.
And what,
So it's about $100,000 out of 11 million.
and are we including anything with solar in this one?
No. I've done a very conservative budget. If I feel that if revenue comes in the next year, that will be good, but I'm not counting on anything unless there's a sign,
Anything major?
yeah.
Well, I think the revenue sources from the departments are actually a little up than we anticipated as well.
And some of them, we did increase some fees in the beginning of the year, in planning. So we anticipated some of that, but once again, it's still a conservative, approach.
I'm glad about the things that we added, I think it was important, I mean, we definitely needed more foot patrol downtown, I'm glad we added the additional sector. And, code enforcement, clerical in the town attorney, clerk's office, all good things that were needed.
Code enforcement, we're providing for 1 full-timer?
Okay, because in doing the numbers, it looks like there's only 26,000 that was added into that budget.
It's in the building department,
So you put code enforcement in the building department instead of under the town attorney?
correct.
Okay, so we're getting an additional person in the building department also, so why would we put it under the code enforcement under the building department when all the code enforcement officers are under the town attorney?
Because I think for efficiency, some of the, same as we did with the sign gentleman, was under building. So depending on what we do, we're trying to do it for efficiency and to be more effective, and that's why we're asked to meet with code enforcement and building and planning and everybody else, because I think that there are maybe some tweaks to the way we do it as a town, that could help improve, us being able to do our code enforcement. And that's something that, once again, will be presented to the whole board.
Well, I disagree. I think the code enforcement should be under the town attorney, and we shouldn't have one code enforcement officer under the building department, and then 3 other code enforcement officers under the town attorney. I think that they should all be lumped in one, and I think that you also made that adjustment in, another section of the budget where you felt that it was appropriate for that person to fall under, for IT, instead of to fall under accounting. Bill, if I'm not,
Person?
the personnel under IT.
Oh, no, what that was is the, the software for ADP and
Right.
for the personnel and
You
the,
put it under
payroll
IT
fund.
instead of under the general, expenses of the town.
Well, instead of putting it in
It was a switch in
accounting for the
practice, yeah.
for the payroll processing and personnel for the personnel portion of ADP, it was lumped in, and really all of the IT stuff has now been put in the IT budget, so it's consistent in one area. It's still coming out of the general fund, so whether we're paying those fees out of the IT budget, which happens to be line 1680 versus 1310, it's still coming out of.
Which is the license agreements that we have, that we have for different things, where instead of coming out of each department, it will be managed out of the IT department, so it
Right.
stays together.
So that's why I think that code enforcement should be into the town attorney's office and, staying together, instead of under the building department, because from the way I'm reading it, it looks like there's only $26,000 extra in personnel services in the building department, once you add the additional person at the base salary. So, I could be mistaken, Bill,
I
but if
think
you
it
could
has to
show me.
do with somebody who left, go ahead.
Yeah, if you look at, what's in the building department, the salary of someone who left versus the salary
Of a new person coming in.
of replacing that person had saved some money, so the amount that's in the budget, I believe, is 36,000, I'm gonna check that now, for that person, even though it only shows an increase of 26 for that. And that's just because of the way everything else fell from year to year. Whether it comes out of another department, as long as it's in the general fund, when the board decides who they're hiring, then they decide which department they're under at that point, and then we can always move the money from code enforcement to the attorney, or whatever it happens to be. So, let me
I
just
just
look.
don't know why it wouldn't be done that way initially, that's all, that was just questioning. So you're telling me that there's enough money in the budget for a full-time code enforcement officer, but part of that person's salary is in the building department, and then it's leftover salary from somebody that left, that was
No.
making more money? Is
Somebody
that-
somebody who was here for a longer time, who retired at a higher salary.
Who's
who-
that?
Who left, who was that, Pat. So when Pat left, right, we hired somebody else at a lower salary.
So so Patricia's salary is still in the building department line?
Yeah, so here's what we did, we
Even though she
replaced
left.
that salary.
No, that's not the way it works.
We replaced, and we replaced Patricia's salary with a $42,000 salary.
Okay,
And then we added a new salary of 36,000. So that's so that's what wound up happening, so the new person, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've already,
yes,
put that person in there, is in here, it's called vacancy in the budget, cause at the time we did the budget, we didn't know who that person was. And then the $36,000 is the money for a new person to come in, and again, whether it stays here or goes to town attorney, depending on who you hire, will be where that money goes.
Not to be confused with a personnel, a floating clerk for the building department.
Right.
It also, I believe, is accounted for in.
Correct.
Well, I can tell you from looking at this, there are some massaging that probably will have to take place throughout whatever, for certain departments, but as far as generally looking at the tax levy, I don't see any really thing big that I could come up with to dispute the findings. There are some, I found some revenue in the police lines and stuff like that, a couple $100,000 here, but that's something that can be used either for
Scat
buildings
pay.
and grounds?
scat pay, save that, or
We
maybe
don't have a budget for
building
scat pay.
reserves or whatever.
Yeah. So-
Additional personnel or whatever.
And I appreciate you sharing that with me yesterday, Jim, that you found like $225,000 in the budget, which leads me to the next thing, in that our buildings and grounds guys have been cut back, and people have left, and they haven't been replenished, and these guys are really struggling out there, and as we have more and more parks that come on board, and more expectations as to what we want them to do, I think it's important that we replenish the buildings and grounds fund and add 2 people and use that $225,000 that Jim found to hire 2 more buildings and grounds people. We need it for the Enterprise Park at Calverton Recreation Trail. Our guys are loading up and going to another park and then unloading and cutting the grass and then trying to load up and get to another park to cut the grass and then, unloading and then loading up. It's just, there's a lot out there and we don't have enough, and like I said, we've cut back year after year. So I think it's important that we add 2 buildings and grounds.
I think that we did go over the numbers, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Buildings and Grounds has had it's had 18 people as there since, for the past 3, 4, 5 years?
So the
So
last
there
three-
hasn't been any cutbacks in the past few
The
years?
last 3 years has been 18 people budgeted in buildings and grounds. There was cutbacks, I think, in 2011, where there was a person, maybe a second person cut. I didn't look between 11 and 16 to see any additional cuts, but I know there was 1 or 2 cut back in 2011.
More importantly, though, is their workload increase. Even if you have the same number of people, the workload increase has gone up.
Yeah, there's more
These
public
guys,
parks.
they bust their, you know what's out there.
I don't
They
dis-
need help.
I don't disagree with
need
you.
help.
I think I've put through a solid budget. I think that we, you know, we have added, people to the town to be able to do stuff. I think I have spoken to Buildings and Grounds and Engineering, whether it is a full-time person they need or seasonal, help that they need there is yet to be determined. I have not gone over their schedules, you know, bit by bit, to figure that out yet. But we do, if there is play in the general fund, you know, that can be used during the year, and if it is for buildings and
I
grounds,
think a good
then it certainly
A
is
good
something that
indicator
could,
of that
that
is
could
looking
happen.
at the overtime budgets. That really is the good indicator of
Correct.
whether somebody's, overtaxed.
And also,
And of course, overworked, because I know from, you know, the events I run, you know, whether it's the concert series or bonfire or whatever, carpool boat races, and they're always there, and they work so much, some people only wanna come to work overtime.
Right.
I need a day
Right.
off, I just don't wanna be
and,
here anymore.
and they're, the guys in B and G are accruing a lot of comp time, and then they're taking that time off at times that we need them. If they're working and they're getting excess hours in the summertime cutting grass, or painting railings, or fixing roofs, or whatever it is they're doing, and in the summertime, and then in the wintertime, when it's time to plow the sidewalks or plow the parking lots, they're leaving, they're taking their comp time, so, and the highway department has been complaining about that for years too, is that there's so many hours that they're accumulating in comp time during the busy season, that there's nobody around when they need someone during the off-season, so I really think it's important that instead of these guys working 10-hour days accruing comp time, that we just get 2 additional people and we have a steady workforce. And I don't know if anybody supports that idea of using some of the $225,000 that Jim found to, adding 2 buildings and grounds people.
I'm not opposed to that, I don't know whether that particular maneuvering or filling has to happen at this particular meeting, but, I think I'm looking at the tentative budget, like I said, I was looking at the tax levy, and where that's being applied. There is money in the general fund for, like I said, we might have to massage for jobs, whether it's B and G, or whether it's additional code enforcement, or whether it's
Police vehicles
whatever.
or comprehensive plan,
and
there's
I
a
certainly
lot of things
support,
that we're,
I think from working with B and G, I have to agree with you, I think they, I mean, talking with the guy, I mean, these guys are, we did cut back a little bit on them, maybe definitely prior to your thing, but as Tim said, we've got a lot more pocket parks now, we've got the nature preserve, we've got EPCA, we've got so much more for them to take care of.
The 911 memorial on Park and Sound, and
So,
we
I
have
mean-
increased staff, and now the recreation trail at EPCAL, which a lot of people are using, and I know the supervisor's getting as many phone calls as I am, because I tell them to call you, because we need somebody to cut the grass around the trail. So, it's needed, and it's time, and if you have the extra $225,000 in the budget without exceeding the cap, then I think we should use some of that money to hire 2 more buildings and grounds.
and the other thought is, you know, should we give it back to the taxpayers? You know, this is, if we, you know, we've asked the taxpayers, we, as I said, I put through a solid budget. I think that you can't do everything in 1 year. I think there's a lot of things in this budget that is, presented to help cover some of the things that we're looking to do. And if we're going to do that, I think, you know, everything has to happen. So I think, you know, should we give that money back to the taxpayers and reduce the tax levy by that amount?
I don't think that would be wise.
And
And I'll tell you why, because there's always unforeseens, and at the end of the year, what's left, you wanna put in reserve, and use that maybe for the next cycle to lower the tax increase, but to do it right off, you know, that's all you need to do, and then you're gonna wind up like Sean's first year, where we had floods and fires and everything else, that, you know, the whole world was falling apart his first year here, and, you know, you gotta lay out all this money before FEMA comes back, I mean, it could be, I mean, you're only talking a couple $100,000, you're not talking millions.
The one thing I would just like to add to that is, since it's in salaries and it's within our budget or within the cap, whether we apply that to, people's pay when they retire, their accumulated leave, or whether we apply that to another employee that we need in B and G or wherever, it's already built in the budget.
You have the option.
And you have the option to do what you need with it, and it's recurring, the revenue's coming in recurring, and the expense, if it's an additional B and G guy, or whoever it may be, is recurring also. And it's really just up to the board to decide, you know, what you're doing with it, whether it's a B and G guy or whatever else it may be.
Right.
So I think we can discuss that at future meetings.
You need one generator to go out and all of a
And I
sudden
don't
there it
disagree
goes.
that B and G is pretty strapped. I know that when I talk to them, you know, they're really, it's a very busy department, but I think it's something we need to talk about.
Alright, a couple concerns that I marked up here. And Laura, I spoke to you about one of them with the police department, with the cutback on the vehicles. Page 14.
It was, you know, I
And it
mean,
went from $275,000 down to $90,000.
so we just purchased some vehicles with the money that we had. So the 90,000, obviously I would like to make that higher, but you know, you have to make decisions, and that was one of the decisions. I would not like to see that rolling forward, but it does allow at least, I think, 2 cars, to go forward, and to support the cars that they had previously,
I spoke to the chief about it, and he is somewhat uncomfortable with that figure. Just knowing in past practices and past situations where vehicles get wrecked or things happen, that could be an issue for us down the road. That's a concern I have.
And Tim, you also expressed to me that we are hiring 2 more police officers and creating another sector, so they need a car right off of
It's
that.
foot patrols, the 2 down, 607 and 608 will now be foot patrols and bike, so they won't need.
In the winter when it's snowing, they're gonna be foot patrols and bike?
Well, they still need a car to get back, to
Exactly.
traverse
Right,
back and
they
forth
do.
down there.
But there won't be-
And
there
if they make
won't
an
be
arrest, they're gonna need a
Yeah.
car to transport, and so they will need vehicles.
I agree.
So that's just a concern of mine, that if we could look at that a little closer.
And one of the challenges with this was settling the contract. We really had to absorb, you know, almost an 8% increase, across the board, to get them up, because the past couple years, they haven't received their increases. So that does offset some of this in this particular year. So it's not something I would like to do going forward, but in making decisions, that was part of my decision-making process.
Understood, I'm just a little leery of it.
Okay.
To get the additional foot patrol down there is a home run.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite thing out of this
Well,
entire
you might have to
budget.
buy a couple extra pair of shoes.
And a warm winter coat.
It really is, I'm glad that
Yeah.
that finally has come, because
Yeah.
that's something that's been looked at for quite a while.
Yeah.
Bill, can you show me in here where last year we had decided, to an additional payment to the highway superintendent for $20,000 to oversee the town garage?
Yeah, it's my fault, it was
I didn't-
missed in
that's
going
not-
back and forth.
I didn't
And we
see it
just
here.
put his current salary in there, it should be in the municipal garage line. So again, if that 225, if we need to put 20,000 in there, which we would,
I didn't see it in
you would, you would have to, let me tell you the line that it would, go into. On page 13, that would go into the, 169101 line, so that 285 would have to increase, for the services in municipal garage to add another 20,000.
Okay. Now, how about if we had a scenario where we didn't have to use that $20,000 for that?
It's still in the general fund,
Okay.
so it can be
As well
used
as
for other.
even though it's a highway superintendent, he's doing a function of the general fund, so it's gonna be charged to the general fund, whether it's a highway superintendent or whatever it may be.
Well, in conversations with the chief of police,
Because Jamie's, is full-time.
Oh, right, okay.
in conversations with the chief of police, the chief would be willing to take over the town garage without a $20,000 payment. He would be doing it as part of his duties as the police department. And it makes sense, because the majority of the vehicles up there in the yard and such are police related.
And
It
most of the
makes
funding
sense
comes
because
out
it
of
would
police.
save us $20,000 in terms of paying an elected official to oversee the town garage kind of as a department head. And that was really my biggest concern with Gio being in charge of the municipal garages, that he is an elected official. And I think that's troubling for me, to have an elected official also act as a department head. And what I find even better is that if we can save the $20,000 that we've been paying him, or we paid him prorated, but, that's what we allocated for it, to have an oversight of the municipal garage by the police department at no cost.
Well, we can call the chief in and certainly discuss that and see how we can fit that into his busy schedule that he has.
Okay.
And, I know that there.
We've discussed municipal garage, we're doing a phase, but that was always my concern, that's why I was very advocate to get John Dunleavy out of there when he was acting department head.
Yes, exactly.
So,
I think we'll have Gio come in,
I
we'll
know-
have him,
well, we
have him
know-
review what he's
well-
doing, and we'll have the chief come in, and, you know, we can evaluate it.
I'm never gonna change my mind about having an elected official in charge of a department, but, as far as a municipal department. But, I think gosh darn it, you took the thing right out of my head,
Sorry.
you're pretty good at that. I was,
Doesn't take much.
yeah, you're right, if the thought comes back to me, I will.
Jump in.
About the municipal garage, I will talk
Just
about
don't call me at 4 in the morning with that
Oh,
thought.
my goodness gracious, it wasn't so much Geo, it wasn't
But
so
just
much an
food for
elected
thought on
official.
that, because I think that could be a savings of some money that might be able to be used elsewhere.
Yep, and segue into our, assessor, Laverne, has asked for an increase. She says she's going above and beyond, and she's spending, you know, time in the office, doing zoning, putting zoning on the real property tax service system, and I know the other assessors are doing that as well. And I know that she's asked to be compensated for that, and she is a valuable asset to the town, and I would hate to see her start looking elsewhere where they're paying sometimes $30,000 or $40,000 more a year for her position than what she's making. So that was a concern of ours in the past, which is why the past budget had increased their salaries by, I think, $10,000 for the elected officials, because, you know, there were people in their office that were getting close to making as much as they were, and they were the elected officials doing all the work and responsible for it. So I think that we need to, you know, if it is decided that that $20,000 is, the chief is going to take over the municipal garage and he's not going to charge, and he's got the captain, the lieutenants, the sergeants, all the people underneath
I thought you came back.
that
Yeah, they
could,
ran the dog pound for years.
that could do that, right. So I think that we need to take that into consideration, that Laverne has asked for an increase in her salary, and I think we need to take it seriously before we lose a good person that is, I mean, we're getting another $1.5 million into, the levy this year from IDA properties that have come off of their incentives, and we're getting another $1.5 million this year from those projects that were approved 10 years ago. There's $100,000 in the budget for a cell tower additional than what I think we're gonna take in, but I know you put in it for anticipated revenue for the $100,000 for a cell tower, that, I don't know that we're getting that revenue. There's the $365,000, which was the pro rata that we had when we estimate as to, you know, we have so many veterans that are on the books. And when a veteran moves out of a house and a regular person moves in, their assessment changes, cause they're no longer getting those exemptions. And we've built up $365,000 over the past 10 years, and that money is being used to offset a tax increase. And I agree with that. I don't think that we should have, $365,000. We're also saving $265,000 this year from the police budget, so that's, you know.
But I think you also have to keep in mind that our general fund balance, what the town board has is 15%, it should be in a general fund balance. We cannot lose sight of that, and we have much less than that. We should have 7.5 million in there, and we
Right.
don't. So that, you know, I think we need to be very conservative with how we're doing everything.
So,
And the
so
assessors
if I
don't
could
want
just
us to
finish,
cut a raise.
because back to what I was saying, if you put the $365,000 that was in the pro rata, that was a reserve, and you put the $265,000 in savings for the police, that would be $600,000 that you'd be adding to the general fund, and you'd be working towards that goal of 15%. But instead, you decided to use our rainy day fund to offset the budget increase so that you wouldn't pierce the cap. And I get that, but when it comes to compensating employees for the work that they're doing, now that we finally do have a balanced budget after all these years of increasing slowly and slowly, rather than 16 to 18% right off the bat when we took office in 2010, we're finally at a balanced budget, we're finally coming off the landfill debt, we're finally, you know,
We're not coming
getting.
off the landfill debt, we still have several years with large landfill debt
But it's
But it's
down from
come
what it
down,
was.
thank goodness.
Significantly, it came down $700,000 a couple years ago. So, it's coming down, and that is, I think, a smart way of budgeting, so I'm not faulting you for using the $265,000 that we're saving in the police budget to offset the tax increase, and the $347,000 that we saved up in the pro rata, and hopefully, you know, we'll keep our veterans
Kind
around,
of-
but.
I agree with, I
So
agree.
you're saying here's the cap?
No, what I'm saying is that I think that while we have $225,000 that was budgeted for police salaries, that's not an actual number based on their promotions that they're getting and their increases, it's like another slush fund of $225,000, it could have been a mistake, but I'm saying that we should look at that money and
I'll address that.
start using it to compensate some employees and to get some buildings and grounds people. We've been talking about it for years, we've been talking about a Route 58 corridor study that we've wanted to do, and I just don't see that in the budget. I know that the people in the supervisor's office that are appointed are getting a 2% salary increase this year. And Karen, it's not budgeted for Karen to get a 2%, and I guess your argument was that they've been here for a year, and even though they didn't sign on to the pay lag and they didn't give back any time, you were gonna give them 2%, which is nice, but, you know,
Did you request an increase for Karen?
well, I didn't sit in on the department head budgets, but I did discuss it with Tim, and I think we all agree that if your staff,
Did you request it for Karen?
your staff is getting a 2% increase.
I'm just asking, did you request one for
I'm
Karen?
asking you what your logic is for giving your staff a 2% increase, because they've been here for longer than a year, and they didn't sign on to that initial agreement, but you would cut somebody out. I'm asking you why you would do that.
But I gave 2% as well, but Bill, how much?
She did get an increase,
But, yeah, thank you,
Yes.
she got 2% also.
well, $800 a year, I don't know what the
Yeah, she
percentage
got,
is.
I believe we gave everybody the 2%.
Bill, when I met with Bill, he told me that it wasn't in there, it wasn't in her salary, at 2% for her, because she wasn't being seen as someone that had been,
Well, it's,
I apologize, I may have said that, we went through a lot that day.
well, I
but
have it
I'm
written
look-
down here.
Yeah, I'm
I
not
did
saying
get
it, I'm looking at it now, and, she did get it, and I did look at it, I guess she started, I didn't think she
Yeah.
started in January, she was on the resolution in 18, and that's how we did it in the salary schedule, if you were on the resolution in 18,
Right.
we budgeted for that, so if the board decides
Okay,
yes
you
to
told me
get
the other day that Karen was not in here.
Alright, well, he
I
was wrong.
apologize.
Okay.
She was.
Scratch that one up.
Okay.
Good.
So,
I can
the
tell,
Peconic Estuary Program, we have an intermunicipal agreement with other towns for $6,000 a year is our commitment. I know that I had gotten emails from Felicia Skakoza from the Community Awareness Program about a $7,500, support that we give to the Community Awareness Program, and she was told that she wasn't getting it, but I'm happy that Bill has said that we have an agreement with CAP for 2018 and 2019, that we're committed to that 7,500, so I think Bill said he put it back in the budget,
Well, I
but,
put it back in the budget, because I had reached out to Felicia, I know that they get some money from the county, they also got an additional, $125,000 grant from the federal government, so I had asked her if they, between those two grants and their fundraising, if they would be able to sustain themselves, and we could use that money for some other programs that we could implement in town. Felicia said that they would not be able to do that, and so that was fine, and we left the money in there.
actually, I think Bill told me the other day that he showed you the agreement for 2018 and 2019, that we were committed to the 7,500, and that's how it ended
That,
up.
we looked at that afterwards, we had already had the conversations with Felicia before that.
So where is the 6,000 for the intermunicipal agreement for a, point person for the Peconic Estuary Program?
I don't have that agreement, I know we have paid them, so I'm not sure where it is in here, I'll have to look where we paid it from to see if it's in here again.
I'd like to
So-
make sure the other town is paying, cause if we're the only ones paying, I'd just assume not to.
Yeah, well, we have an intermunicipal agreement to pay a salary of a person that's a
A
point
portion,
person to
like,
take some
us
time off of
and every other
jury
East
stands
End town, and I'm not sure other East End towns signed on to that.
Well, I'll contact
do you wanna-
the attorney's office and
Well, they-
look for that.
Okay, as long as we're not the only one.
So we need to
Did
budget
you
for that.
notice,
14 towns goes, part of the
Yes.
And it's based on whatever percentage of the estuary involved in, I guess.
No, I think the larger towns paid 6,000 and the villages paid 2,500 or something to that
Yeah.
effect, so.
alright, I'll look.
Right.
Any other questions?
No, I remember what I thought was on the town garage.
Alright, what's, too much time has passed,
I'm
it
glad
does.
it's not 3 in the morning.
Well, I can tell you, my biggest thing, and I talked about this way back when we were talking about giving Geo an increase to oversee it, was, one was, the discussion we had about an elected official in that role, but the second thing was, the thing that, and I tried to explain to you, was sorely missing out there was clerical staff. And everybody knows that a good clerical staff really runs the show, in any business. And with Jan McKenna leaving, and with, Vicky Barakis, and Tammy and Roberta all leaving the police department within a few years of each other, there was a vacuum. And I think there are procedures and policies in place already at the town garage that just weren't being implemented, but I think with Jamie there, and a competent oversight, I think a lot of those problems that we had in town garage will work themselves out.
I think when we appointed Gio to the municipal garage, I believe that we did say that we would evaluate it
Yeah.
at the end of the year, and I think that's certainly what we should do.
Right,
And I have no
we
problem
agreed
with
to that because it was pro rata, and, you know, I get you, I get it.
So, I think it's a good idea to get him in here and have him talk about what he's been doing, and maybe that will resolve some of the concerns.
So is there any money in here for any anticipation of making improvements to the justice court? Or to move the justice
I'm
court,
gonna win a
or
lottery and pay for that.
what?
That's why I said we should buy
I'm gonna
lottery
win a
tickets
lottery, and I'm
as
gonna
a
pay for
town.
that myself.
Yeah, I think as far as the justice court is concerned, I think we have to do the same thing that we did, similar to, it's a large project, and I think there's many facets to it, whether it be, I know the armory has always been a thought over there, whether it be police and justice courts to move over to the armory, whether we would build out here at near town hall to do that, whether we would move some other facilities to somewhere else. And I think that, over this past year have been kind of looking around of what it is that's a possibility. Without a doubt, something needs to be done, and it also has to be the wherewithal that the town board is willing to bond it out. This is my first year here. I think if I had come in and sat down here within month 1 or 2 and say, I wanna bond out $18 million for justice court, I think you guys would've.
Right, no, you
You
gotta
guys would've,
get,
I mean, there would've been no support
we're
from the
not in
three of you,
position to
really.
bond that kind of money
And
at this point.
so I think that, this is my first budget I'm putting through. I think the justice court would not be something that would be done in the budget, that would be a capital improvement, it would be a bonding issue. So I think it's certainly something that I would like to tackle
Well,
within
we'll
the
look at
next
it
year.
6 months from now.
Yeah, I think it's something that we need to tackle, and I think, I don't think we can keep going on the way that we're going. So I understand that, I know my staff has been very much in the front, going over to justice courts, seeing what their problems are, seeing what their space problems are, seeing how there's maybe possible solutions to something, and even if we do something, even if we build something out, it's still gonna take several years to, by the time we've gotten the plans, I mean, we've talked to engineering about it, they're well aware, they've pulled up old plans that we've had, so there needs to be some
And there were
sort of
some-
allocation of
You're right,
space in the
and there were some
meantime.
things about local justice court that we talked about, in the meantime, as a.
Absolutely.
It's as a stopgap of maybe additional court at night, maybe additional traffic court on a separate day. There's other things they could do to massage the calendar too, so that they're not all inundated between 9 and 1 on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I mean, they can have an evening court just for simple infractions or something like that, and there's ways to split that calendar to make it a
Well,
little safer.
We had talked about possibly putting a modula over there, in the interim,
Yeah, but they stay there forever,
they
as the
didn't,
schools.
they didn't wanna do that, there's a possibility if maybe something could be conducted over at, they could do some work from Stosky Park over there, if that would work for them, or even to move some files or something, they have a basement down there. So there's a lot of things, but I think that's something, once again, it's something that we all need to discuss together.
Yep.
I just think you can only do so much in a certain amount of time,
Okay, so
and
I
it's
just
on the
asked if there was
agenda.
anything in the budget for justice court, so the answer
Well,
would
I'm
be no.
explaining it.
And
And then,
I just wanna, on the justice court, honestly, it's a huge safety issue, and it's really terrible working
Yeah.
conditions, and, I think the residents need to know that it's such a problem, and it's definitely, I'm glad that we're discussing it right now, because it's something we need to tackle in the near future.
I worked it, I
It's
know
really,
it, I know it.
when I went over there and got the tour on a busy day, it's terribly shocking, honestly.
Then we outgrew it and we moved in in '86.
and then I know we were having problems with the sewer, trying to figure out what the budget was going to be for the sewer, what the levy was gonna be, what the county hasn't had a contract for, since, was it this year or 2 years? 2 years, so they're not giving us any money.
Well, I think they're out of contract just 1 year, I believe. I think it's just 1 year.
So, we're not getting any of that revenue, and we haven't signed a contract with the county for what their costs are. Our sewer superintendent said we needed 1.2 million a year, and they're saying that they only wanna pay 450,000, I guess, in conversations with you, but based on the flow, they're saying that 560,000 or 570,000 is the minimum that we can take in. So, is there anything in the budget to offset that if we don't negotiate that contract?
Well, I think let's backtrack a little bit, because this has been brewing for several years. I believe that all of you were on the board, when
They're 1 year out of contract.
when you decided that the sewer district needed the 0.25% sales tax also to offset the cost. The county center is not to offset the whole cost of the sewer district. I think there was a lawsuit and there's litigation pending before the county to offset some of those costs, and I think those are the numbers you're referring to, the 1.2 million. That is a 0.25% sales tax to offset the cost of running the sewer district and the improvements to the sewer district. That has not been settled, and that is still in litigation. As far as the county for the cost we are still in negotiations to come up with a fee for a 25 year contract to be able to discharge into our sewer district from the county center. That has not been settled at this point, so.
Okay, so right now, come January 1, we're short $1.2 million in the sewer district
Well,
fund.
that was from last year. We're short, I'll let you address that, Bill, but that's from 17 and 18, that we're short because it was the 0.25% sales tax when the litigation went in wasn't covered.
And the
So-
county hadn't paid.
But the county did not agree to the 0.25% sales tax, and for the past 2 years, the sewer rate was not raised in anticipation of that litigation, and that's
asking-
where the money developed,
I'm
so.
just saying there's a shortfall in the operating budget for the sewer district, and what percent tax increase are the ratepayers within the sewer district expecting to pay if these matters are not resolved come January 1?
And once again, the answer is still the same as it has been for the past 2 years while you guys were sitting here, that the litigation has not been settled, and so we do not know that number.
No, but the bills have to get paid.
I understand that, and
So
they weren't.
did you budget for that?
I have budgeted for what we have in the budget here as far as what the expenses are and what the revenue is coming in. We
But
don't
there's a
know what the other
shortfall.
numbers are. The shortfall is the shortfall from 17 and 18 is what?
Well, we don't know the shortfall from 18 because it's not final. So the shortfall from 17,
From 16 and 17.
well, so there's two separate issues here,
Correct.
okay? One issue is a 0.25% sales tax, which goes back to 16, 17, and 18. The other one is the pilot agreement with the county for them using our sewer district. So, the pilot agreement from the county, we have budgeted in the past for them based on the old agreement, which is, they're out of agreement as of this year.
Out of agreement and then have stopped paying.
Well, we
Well,
haven't billed that
they
yet.
paid what they were required to pay, they haven't paid in 18.
Right.
Obviously, they're still using the sewer, they haven't paid in 18, and we have to enter an agreement with them.
And that number's like 300,000?
Roughly, yes, roughly 300,000 a year. The second issue is the 0.25% sales tax, in which, for the last 6 years or so, we have been increasing the rate in the sewer district by a 3% number. Suffolk County, 0.25% sales tax says if they qualify, that, the district has to increase the rate to the taxpayers or the ratepayers by 3%, and then anything above that would be your contribution from the sales tax. We're still debating that, but that's just what they do for qualified, districts. So we've been increasing the budget by 3%, increasing the rates by 3% in order to bring that money in, with a combination of taxes and rates, okay? So now we're, again, doing the same thing in 2019, increasing that rate by the 3% so that our taxpayers are bearing a 3% increase, and budgeting for the balance of that from the county, 0.25% sales tax. Again,
But
whether we're
the
getting that or not is
ratepayers-
another issue, and that, you know,
And that was it.
beyond this discussion, so
But
we're, go ahead.
The taxpayers within the within the sewer district have had a steady increase of 3% every year in anticipation of this balloon that was gonna hit us with a major tax increase if the county didn't let us use the sewer stabilization fund to offset that increase of being more than 3%, and the county is still fighting us on it, and it, in my opinion, what they're doing is not fair, but I think most of it is executive session, so I don't know that I can,
Right, I'm
we
not
can't
so
really
sure
go
that
into the details,
even
but,
as-
but I'm just asking, what are we doing to offset without knowing what we're gonna get from the county, and we're a 1.2 million shortfall for 2019.
Well, I'm not so sure what you could do. I mean, you put a budget of, the best guess budget together, you do your 3%, cause you know that's what your revenue is involved. You look at your funding sources, and you work on negotiating the difference. I mean, you're not gonna anticipate a $1 million shortfall in your budget, and tax that right off the bat.
But that's what we have right now, so it's just a matter of time next year before we run out of money to pay the bills in the sewer district.
Well, then people have to flush on Tuesdays, that's all, and you can't
Oh, is
flush
that
the rest.
payment made once a year, or is it paid quarterly, or monthly, or?
Which payment
The
to
sewer.
us?
Yeah,
County contract.
The account once a year.
Once a year.
Same as with the.
okay.
And that, you know, I hope, well, I'm hoping that the could prevail, I hope.
It's a challenge.
And the
Otherwise, I need
scavenger-
the key to where the shut-off valve is, so
Yeah.
I'll go over there myself and shut it down.
Well,
And the
there's
scavenger waste, is that still operating at deficit?
other things at play there, too.
Yes, it is, but we have fund balance in scavenger waste, we are not taxing Riverhead residents for that. And Michael and I go through, once a year or so to see how long that's gonna last before we either shut it down or, increase the, rates so that we're balanced. We're increasing those rates also, so we get to the point where it's balanced, and you have to take economics into effect as how much is gonna go up west versus stay here, and then you don't receive that money anyway, so there's still fund balance in scavenger waste, and the point would be in 3 or 4 years, if that's when we start running out of fund balance, to say, are we just closing the doors, or are we, increasing it to what the market is and see what happens?
And the other thought is to do some, you know, sort of, I'll call it congestion pricing, you know, where the summer traffic is more, should the prices increase in the summer? Because there's more use in the summer, and then folks are using at the winter time where they have choice and traffic isn't so much, and they could go, it's easier to go a little further west. We keep the prices lower during those seasons, so that's one of the things
Less
that Mike
scavenger.
is looking, yeah, Michael's looking at as a possible way to bring in some more funds into there.
And then we are still charging the administrative chargebacks to the special districts, correct? Is that 14%?
The highway.
It's not a percentage it's based on what resources of the general fund they use, so I'll just make a very simple, scenario. We pay payroll for everybody, whether you're in the sewer district, the general fund, or whatever else it may be.
And that cost
So
is
that's a
covered
cost
by
to the
ED.
general fund, so we recoup that based on how many employees and what it costs to process payroll per employee.
But they're all justified in one way,
Yes,
Yes.
the state
Right,
controller
right.
came in and approved our calculation.
a formula. Well, how much you gonna pay me for listening to you for the last 5 minutes?
John, is that right?
We didn't even talk about
Okay.
We're not done already, are we?
No,
Not
We're
come up with a
halfway
budget?
what?
Oh, we're not done with your budget yet.
No?
Well,
Okay,
well, for now, for now, for good.
alright.
So Bill, you'll get back to me on the 6,000 for Peconic Estuary?
I wanna know where the, special events thing is. Yeah, show me where the, where's the money for the bonfire?
It's there, if you go to, let me get that. It's gonna be in the
Well, that should be done.
Yeah.
It should be just a little bit of wrap up.
Final, yeah.
We are persevering through this, it's gonna get done.
It's important.
Celebrations.
Quick question, so was there an amendment to the budget after you present, like, you first did it? So it was,
There was a early cover letter, or cover page that
The only change to the budget was, one of the statistics did not show the total increase, it had a 0 or blank because it was.
Oh, that was the first page when the
So,
budget was,
yeah,
yes,
it was
yes.
just statistically, it wasn't showing the percent increase
Percentage comparison.
comparison, that's all.
Yes,
But
yes.
I thought there was also something to do with the $347,000 that we were using from pro rata, no?
No, no.
No, I think it was just done incorrectly.
Tim's asking something.
and not a bad,
It's rounded up. it's rounded, I think it's round. No, that's the total operating, that's the total
Tim, if you
operating,
want,
the
let me
total
just-
operating budget with all the
I'll come and
districts.
answer your question.
Yeah.
Those numbers do tie into the budget, I'll come and answer your question in 1 second, if you give me a minute just to answer Councilman's question. Okay, it's, I can find it for you too, we do have it, it's called, what did I just say it was, Tim, I'm getting, celebration, yep.
And my name is Jim, okay there, Bob? Jim.
Okay, Bob.
Oh, don't insult me, Bill.
Exactly.
I can't wait either.
Okay. Back in 2012, around July, the town issued requests for proposals for the landfill. And it was, done with different types of renewable energy projects, solar, as well as, a windmill or wind or, power cells. We received 7 responses, and in fact, the town board awarded a, RFP to a company called Borrego, if you remember, in 2012. But it was subject to, a, power purchase agreement with LIPA, and it didn't happen. There's been some expression of interest again, so I dusted off the old RFP, bumped it up to 2018, and, have pretty much the bones for it ready to go. Yesterday, as it turns out, we got a visit from some folks from NYSERDA, who do this on a much more frequent basis than we do, and they said, listen, if you're doing anything like that, we don't mind taking a look at your RFP to tweak it, bring it along and add to it. So, what I'd like to do, if there's interest in the town board going forward, give it to NYSERDA, have them give us some project back, and then I'll have a full document for you, hopefully shortly, sometime in end of November, beginning of December, to go out to an RFP, if there's interest in doing that.
So they're not gonna charge us, Xterra, to review the RFP? Okay.
NYSERDA's, they're gonna do this as the individuals who look at this on a much more frequent basis than I,
Okay.
sort of, quasi-experts, if you will.
Good.
And,
Well, it's.
take a
was
hard
way-
look at
George
it.
Davison did it way back when, I mean,
Yep.
of course, there wasn't desire, I mean, it all fell
I
through
think there's-
because of the being able to connect then, you think?
Right.
But
There's
there's actually been
change in-
some interest.
Yeah, and there's some change in the
There's been
technology
some
and the way they
interest,
can, and
so-
the way they can hook up for the power station and whether they can hook up
Why
directly
not?
to lines,
It
so.
was-
Sounds
That's why we,
good.
that's why we
Okay.
put,
Good timing for them coming in.
Yes.
We did, it was really
Well, we
odd that they came
yesterday.
yesterday, because,
well, as you know, when we capped it, we purposely put 3 foot of base there so they could tie down solar panels. We made sure that there was enough for anchoring before we put the cap on.
excellent.
All right, very
So,
good.
I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna contact them, I'll send them what we've done, and then, obviously get back some comments and amend it appropriately if needed, and have a resolution and a RFP for you guys.
Okay, very good,
Okay.
thank you.
Sound excited, wow, that sounds very happy.
Okay.
This is too much in one day, that's it for them.
We got lunch coming in.
Come back in and freeze.
Alrighty,
Where you guys so far?
Oh, we are apart, yeah, maybe we'll sit together.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, why don't you do that,
We'll sit together.
so I can have my,
Yeah, give you
Hey,
your
oh, oh.
space there, yeah.
alright, so this is summary minutes for town board meetings discussion.
Yes. I have been making phone calls to other towns to see how they do things, and this really has come about because with our new Minute Track program, parts of the, town board meeting are converted into a minute not an agenda, but,
A minute.
minutes. So, I asked Anne Marie to look some stuff up for me. There is no requirement that we have to do verbatim minutes. Really what it boils down to is, what, do you want summary or verbatim? And which parts of the meeting would you like? I'll just read here from what she has given me. The clerk's duty to keep a complete and accurate record is not a statutory requirement to keep a verbatim record, but rather only requires that the minutes contain all the activities and considerations of the board, including the votes on all motions, resolutions, ordinances, or local laws, whether they were passed or defeated. Further, not all requests and statements of board members and the public need be contained in the minutes. A short statement of substance will suffice. It also says the town board, under its power to determine its rules of procedure, may require that some or all of the discussions taking place at a particular meeting be recorded verbatim. Where a board member makes a statement and requests that it be entered as part of the proceedings verbatim, it is up to the town board to determine by its rules of procedure whether the town clerk is required to record the statement verbatim. If verbatim recording is required, the town board may consider a requirement that the board member must submit his statement in writing before it may be entered as part of the minutes.
One question I have is, since we video everything,
Well, we
and
asked-
that's what they use for the minutes, can the video be the minutes as an addition?
I like the minutes the way they are. I like to go back and see exactly what I said, or I don't want anybody summarizing for me, so I like the minutes the way they are.
From very beginning to very end?
Yeah.
I mean, I will tell you from a lawyer's perspective, we prefer the meeting minutes from beginning to end, because if there's an error in the quote summarization, that's gonna be, you know,
There's no accountability.
well, we could you can utilize the tape, somebody submits a request, you can provide them with the summary. However, under the law, if they require the full minutes, then we'd have to do
Transcribe
that,
it.
correct, do that process for them. What a summary does not include, and so the policy and practice of this town board, as we all are aware, is a full set of minutes. Sometimes we, the attorney, utilize those in our research
use it
and to
every day.
prepare memos. A summary is not gonna reflect necessarily the fact that you may take a vote on a particular matter, but you may want to have your say or describe to the public why it is you're voting a particular way. That might not be in the summary. Likely it won't be, it's a summary of the vote. So those are the things that you're not gonna have. Typically, in a court of law, courts do not look to extrinsic evidence to support a summary, a record that the town clerk prepares. So that's why attorneys like the full record, and quite honestly, from a dollars and cents, I don't know, you know, I'm wondering, how much are we really saving if you have to review and prepare a summary from the minutes? How much time are you really saving from preparation of the minutes in and of itself?
I mean,
I don't know.
That would be a question for you.
Diane?
Your cue.
Right, yeah, this year has been, a year where we really blew through the budget, because we've had a lot of, hearings. And they're all verbatim, so we really, you know, looking to probably add to that budget for the end of the year. In a normal year, it's, you know, it's not too bad. It's about, I think we have a budget of about $6,000. But every time we have, every time we call, right, we call in a court reporter, then it becomes,
More costly.
yeah, it
Yeah,
does,
really,
yeah,
that
it
really
gets
is.
very costly,
So,
right.
I'm just curious why you can't use, because the minutes come from the video, right? Why the video cannot be the minutes?
I like to go back and read the minutes, read what I said. It's much easier for me to access than it is to like go through a video, and if the audibility is not functioning properly, I mean, Diane, I've
But
been
if
in
it's
your
not-
office, if I can finish, Diane, I've been in your office on a number of occasions and said, why do the minutes say inaudible? And then we go back and we look at the CD and we can see clearly what was said on the
hear.
CD, or hear what's been said, and then you have the minutes corrected. So, you need both of them.
So that's my point, so the video is more accurate than the minutes, because you can hear it.
No, I like
I don't know if
minutes.
you can use it
I don't know
though.
why you wouldn't want the minutes.
I'm just curious, this is just a conversation,
Right,
it was a
this is
conversation that
just-
was asked to be brought
Yeah, what is
here
the
before the
impetus for
board,
this
and so that's what
conversation? Is the fact
we're
that you
doing.
went through the budget?
No, mostly it's because we have the new system, and
Oh.
it creates a summary of the, resolutions. But it doesn't, then I have to send out for, verbatim for the
Transcripts.
public hearings and any other comments. So,
You
and
wanna
I've
see if
talked
what
to.
we have is suffice.
Exactly, I talked to other towns, and every town does it a little bit differently, I've talked to towns where they have just a
I've
summary.
read other town minutes, and it is just,
A lot of summary. Some towns do verbatim from beginning to end, and some towns have sections where they have verbatim and other portions where it's summarized.
Can you talk about the surrounding towns and what they do?
Brookhaven is a complete summary, and if anybody wants, a full description, they can request a disc. Or they go online, because everything is online, you have at your fingertips, I think every
All the
town
meetings.
has all their meetings online, so you can see, agendas and minutes, the summary of the minutes, or you can view the, media clip. South Hold has complete verbatim, Huntington has complete verbatim. I think Southampton, I believe, has like a mix.
And Brookhaven also has 7 town board members. So there's probably, their minutes are probably a lot bigger than ours if they're all as boisterous as we are.
Their minutes, I've looked at some, are
Vicky as
very, very summarized. And they said they have never had a problem. I've spoken to the town clerk, she said if anyone requests anything, they are directed to either the website, or if they want a disc, they can request a copy of the disc.
And then who pays for that? If they get a copy of the disc and then they want the minutes actually transcribed by our court reporter, does the public have to pay for that?
Well, I don't know how that works. Brookhaven said they've never had that issue. So I don't know what they would do, but for us, this is just a
Then we
question
have a
put
lot
out
of
there.
people paying very close attention to what's going on in this town compared to Brookhaven and other towns, so.
Well, I wouldn't
I
know
think
too
good
much
people
about
pay
that.
attention in all the towns.
I like
Yeah.
the minutes here on the.
Right. Well,
That's
this is
just my
really why
preference.
I'm here. I wanna know what you want as like a rules of procedure. Do you wanna stick to verbatim totally? Do you want portions to be verbatim and the others summarized, or that's up to you? I'm really just here to ask so that we can,
Decide what to do.
yeah, just because with the new system, things are done differently, and I wanna know how we're going to incorporate these things. So whatever you decide.
And remember if you quote, vote on minutes, you would be voting on a summary of minutes.
But can you, that's my question, the video attached does become a part of the record for your minutes? Does that become, can you use that as your, because really all we're doing is we're taking that, we're handing it to somebody and they're typing it up. So it's not like there's additional information or anything else, so can that be used as, part of, when you accept your minutes, can that be part of your minutes that you accept?
Well, you'd be asking the town board members to vote on the disc.
Yeah, right, correct.
And
Right.
we may have a failure or whatever, I mean, that's,
But if you have
Yeah.
but if you have a failure, you don't have minutes either.
And that has been a problem.
but we all always seem to say that we take the advice of our attorney and we follow that, and she said that verbatim is the best way to go, so.
From an attorney's perspective, without a doubt.
We haven't, some of them, it's not all verbatim.
Yes, they are.
Not totally,
No.
not completely
I've
totally.
made speeches
Right.
voting on a
But
resolution
they're
that,
right.
It'll show up in
It ain't
Audible,
there.
or it'll show up, but other
I
than
don't
that,
make speeches
everything is
often,
supposed to
but-
be in there.
It's not totally verbatim
No,
at
no,
this point.
But if it's not, Jen, then you should be objecting when we adopt the minutes and say, my speech is not in here and the minutes should be changed accordingly.
If that's
I
what
just
you
was going
want.
to, because I wanted a good read.
So-
It's perfectly acceptable to have the minutes as a summary. It's not like you have to have verbatim, that's your choice, and that's why we're here.
So Diane, you're saying that you could have the summary, but then if someone requests the verbatim, they could get that?
They
That's
could,
required under law,
right.
it's not
So, I
her
mean,
option.
I understand what you're saying, and I have to think about it, but the summary does seem user-friendly, maybe for people that wanna look over
Well,
and get a
for
quick
instance,
summary
when
of
people
what
come,
occurred at the meeting.
right, when people come in and, the Boy Scouts get up and they're given a proclamation, is it necessary for that to be verbatim?
No.
Right, and that's why I'm
Require
asking, because
summary.
there are some portions of the meeting that you really can just summarize and say, you know, Boy Scout, you know.
Proclamation given to Boy
Right.
Scouts.
Right, Girl Scouts
Then
came
it's
up,
discretionary as to what makes it in the summary,
right,
and then
Yes.
where's the accountability?
and that's what I want to know.
Right, as part of the agenda, so you have like
Right.
sort of the celebratory part of the agenda, but then when you
Right.
actually get into the business of when you're, you know, reading off, you know,
Right.
the accounts and you're reading off the letters, and then you're starting with the resolutions, public
Right.
comment coming up and
Right.
the comment at the end. So at what
Right.
portion of the meeting do you want to,
Right,
do
right,
that.
what exactly, you know, do you want? If
Oh,
it's
hi,
the whole
husband.
thing, then that's fine, if you wanna keep, you know, going. Or even at the end, a lot of people get up to speak, that's summarized.
right,
But if we vote,
That's fine.
what, we have both available, we have the summary available and we actually have the verbatim available, will we vote on the summary? Cause Anne Marie's talking about,
It's
No, it would be
accessibility.
the
couldn't
other.
we vote on the verbatim, but
No.
the
it's one or the other.
it's one or the other?
Right,
Cause you
Or-
said some towns do a little of each,
some towns will take,
what do they do?
it's a summary, but like public hearings, the public hearing portion might be verbatim, but the rest of the, town board meeting is all summarized.
Like not
So-
all Jim's comments.
Right, so they will just put in,
Okay, I'd
or-
rather not be memorialized anyway,
Right.
sometimes.
so it's really just asking for what, if you want the whole thing verbatim, if you want portions, if you're, you know, just
I
so
think the
that I
practice
have
that you're
something to
doing
go
now, I
on.
think the practice that you're doing now, I'm okay with.
Mm-hmm.
If the video can serve as a part of the minute with a summary, I think it's the same. I don't know if we then have to have the video, timestamped so where it is with the
Right.
resolutions going through, I mean, that's another option. Or we can just let it go as it is now and not make a decision on this, or think about it a little bit, so what is everybody's pleasure?
I like the verbatim minutes. I think it's easily accessible, and I can refer back to see what Jim said, or Catherine talking about how, things that are important to her, so that I can constantly refresh myself.
Well, they also indicate that, you know, it could be a statement from a board member, a written statement entered. So if you have some, like, once in a while, there's times where you guys have, like, a sort of speech that you've prepared for, you could give me the written speech. But sometimes, like, somebody's retiring, you know, everybody says, we thank you very much for your service, you know, you've been here for 30 years,
You don't need all that.
and good luck.
It's nice for the person that retired.
Right,
I
it's
wanna think
nice.
about it, I see
Right.
good, I
Is it
see value in
necessary?
both
I've
ways.
made speeches, but they're very rarely written down.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to my head as I'm yakking.
Well,
But-
Our
my
attorney-
final opinion is, if you're going to deviate from your current practice, you would require to vote to do that.
Good.
And the current practice now is verbatim,
Verbatim.
except for,
a
Verbatim,
hybrid.
right,
with some discretion with
right.
proclamations.
In the
and-
beginning where there's, you know, we don't always say, you know, with the pledge of allegiance, we don't always say
Prayers.
the whole
Right,
thing.
yes.
And then at the end, when people come up to the podium to speak, that's a summary now.
Do you
They're
include when
summarized.
Jim says, and I.
Why is that?
No, we
That
never
should be
do.
verbatim.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Oh, they always say,
What do you
Councilman
want?
Wooden inaudible,
Gets
or
up and
couldn't
speaks,
make
that
it.
should be verbatim too.
It's not right now, it's
How long has it been
summarized.
summarized for?
It's hard to say. Like, when the current transcription is started, she summarizes.
Until how long?
She gives a
Okay.
nice 8 years maybe,
So
something like that.
that's the practice for 8 years.
But that's why I'm here asking, is this something you want to do, or not want to do?
I always go back
or-
to the public hearings though, and public hearings are verbatim, and so that's
Public
really.
hearings,
Right.
I
Once
think,
the
are very
meeting
critical.
officially
I-
opens,
yeah.
it's verbatim.
As it should be.
Yep.
Right. I mean, you know what's important, I mean,
Right,
as far as the public record goes.
So the question is, do we wanna think about it, or continue the current practice, or change the current practice to something else?
I'm fine with it the way it is.
Yeah, I agree,
Yeah.
I prefer having, it is, the minutes are very important, they're easy to pull up,
but
they're easy to access.
specifically as to which, you know, because sometimes people do get up at the podium and they talk for a long time,
Yeah,
Well,
we're
that's what
it is.
supposed to have 5-minute waiver.
right, right.
Well,
And
it
so-
depends, if it's a public hearing, then it's,
Well,
then
public
there's no,
hearings
there's
are
no,
different,
nothing,
right.
yeah,
She's talking
yeah.
about at the end of the meeting, that somebody gets up.
Right,
I know.
somebody,
Got it out.
right,
So my question is, do you want to continue the practice as currently, as we currently have it, or the other thing I'm hearing is you want to increase what we transcribe. So that's where we are right now.
I don't, no, I haven't heard that, I
Close
think,
the town board meeting, verbatim, open and
But we
close.
don't do that right now.
Yes, we do.
No, we don't.
When you open the town board meeting and then you close the town board
Mm-hmm.
meeting, that's not verbatim, cause
No.
the people get up and speak after we close the town board meeting.
no,
No,
no.
no.
We move to adjourn after
They
public
go
discussion.
before resolutions,
And
Right.
after resolutions, and
Where
then we
you talk
close it
about
after that.
resolutions, and
Right,
then at the
okay,
end, everyone
right.
wants to address the
And
board,
that's
then you close
summarized.
them.
okay, so that's.
Comments from the public are
I'm okay with
summarized.
that, with
Yeah, I'm
theirs
fine with
being
the way it's been
summarized.
going.
Yeah.
So you guys,
So
if
the
you'll-
practice, to continue the practice as we
Yeah.
currently are.
Okay.
Right.
I just don't know where I have this from.
And also, Jody, I was
Because Diane
thinking
asked to
that,
have
some
What
comments,
does she
like
want?
as resolutions are being passed and comments are made,
Mm.
if you specifically want your comments to be verbatim, you know, we have that split screen, and you can make comments and send them to me. You could just, I know, but,
But
cause
like
you could
talking
say,
and typing
no,
at
no,
the
no, no,
same
you
time.
could just say, please make my comments verbatim.
And that would be if you had something prior, written up prior
Right.
that you wanted to
I
enter
mean,
into
you
the
just-
record.
Well,
You'd have to have publicly
I mean,
stated.
if
That's an
you
option.
want written comments to be included as part of the record, our current procedure is, you announce the written comments received to be made part of the record of that town board meeting, correct? And you know it, you have the list. We
Right.
can all look before
we
the
got the
town board
letters.
meeting's open, who submitted a written comment that they want part of the record.
No,
Right,
that's,
but
that
this is
Diane's referring to. It-
Exactly, so what you're suggesting is a different policy during the meeting as it's ongoing, that
Right.
the councilwoman could send you through email that the public wouldn't see, make this statement part of the record. Here's the written statement.
No, no, she could just say, because the way it works with our new system, she could just say,
Right now, I have them split screen.
right,
Right.
So when we're going through resolutions, if
And
I have
then-
a comment on this resolution, I can write it in there. And then when I pull up the resolution at the town board meeting, I know what my comment was, and then I can,
but you don't even have to write your comment in there, Joe, you could just say,
Please
Please.
note that I would like this
Verbatim.
verbatim in the record. You're not giving
Simple.
you're not writing what you're saying, you're not
I
saying
know how
what
I
you're
go
writing.
off in
I know.
tandem, and
Well,
I
that's
may
what I
not
wanna
always
know.
remember to make it part of the record.
but you could just, or you could tell me afterward, you could just say, make part of the record. Simply make part of the record, or like, I mean, because if you say, you know, I wanna thank you for, you know, being, you know, a good employee for 30
Great
years,
town
is it,
clerk.
is it really necessary that all those little comments go in?
Oh, no,
If you want them to, that's great,
I
we
wouldn't
can
say
do
that.
that, we
I'm gonna
have
do
the
it now.
ability
Read
to
nine
do
page
whatever it is you
proclamation, no, I
want to
don't
do.
think
I'm okay with the current practice.
Okay,
I am too.
okay, alright, well, you guys can,
Agreed.
alright.
you're the holder
But
of
like-
public records, you know what's important, that's
Yes,
stuff like
yes,
that.
but as Anne Marie said, you then
I
have
wouldn't
to
put any of
make
Jody's
rules of
comments down.
procedure,
No,
no?
they currently have.
Right.
If they choose to deviate,
What
they
do the
must.
rules of procedure say right now?
Currently, the way you are
Mhm.
operating,
Mhm.
we shall continue unless there is a vote of the town board to deviate.
So all it says is continued as we're operating.
We're not changing anything, so we
Okay.
don't
Right.
have to vote on
So it's
anything
not
because we're not
specific,
changing any of
okay.
our current practices.
Okay,
Sorry.
Alright?
so that's what we're doing?
And Diane, you may thank me one day.
Not anytime soon.
Anytime there's a challenge,
Famous last words.
you're the first.
And the
First step.
recorder is the one that's typing the minutes, not you summarizing.
Right, right.
But just at a question, does the video become part of the record? Can we have the videos, in addition to what we have, be part, because you do have audible and all that stuff, can we change so that that is included as part of the record? When it is, when there is a video done, or the meeting is filmed, that it becomes part of the record?
It is, they are all maintained as part of the record
As
currently.
permanent,
As a permanent part of the record,
yeah,
okay,
yes,
okay, alright.
I believe, but I'll double check, because you know I like to do my research, I don't want it off the cuff, but I thought I had actually provided you, and I'll double check, that if a member, if we were, I don't even wanna go back to it, but if we were to agree, and the town board said we'll accept a summary, I believe a member of the public does not have to accept the summary, and they can request it verbatim, and they can request that the town board provide it in a written document form.
I believe that you had said
So-
that, yeah, too.
So,
I
you know,
mean, the
what's the
work
point?
sessions, we don't do the minutes for the work sessions, but I've asked for copies of the work sessions on DVD.
Alright,
And my
Okay.
own little-
very good, thank you.
Alright.
Thank you,
Are we
ladies.
up to minutes? yet?
We
I
are,
mean,
no,
not minutes, resolutions?
no, now we're
We're
doing
gonna finish about
255,
6:30.
we're getting,
Back.
alright,
Oh, 2:55, I might wanna stick around for this.
yeah, stick around for this.
Laura promises, gonna be quick.
Oh God, you got a big pile there.
Uh-oh, that big folder makes me nervous.
you have any questions about this stuff. So I bring it, so
Oh my goodness,
this is all the work we've done.
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Be right back.
But we are on the home stretch.
We are.
through it, and I'm sure, I think we nailed it last.
Alright, so one is for the fee schedule and the other one is the actual codification. The fee schedule, the only thing that we changed, you're welcome, is that we put it, shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State.
Yeah.
That was the only thing we changed. All the fees, I believe everybody was in agreement with.
You wanna make copies?
No, I think,
I have plenty. I gave them to you.
I did for the press.
Oh, I have them.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Just wanna make sure that I have mine and the press can have what's left. Or I'll have to run back to the copy machine. How many do you need? Actually, you can have all of these.
today.
Okay, here we go. I have it. Here you go.
Yeah, but Denise gets all upset, that's crying again.
This is why we don't write down everything you say, Sam.
Yes,
Don't care.
luckily a lot of it's inaudible.
Are we waiting for Jody or did she leave?
She said she'll be right back. You can go ahead and start.
Okay.
I'll step out, I have a wedding to do at 1:30, but right here in town hall, so I'll do it in the back office, but if he happens to come in, I'll just slide out, do the wedding and then go back.
Okay,
Alright,
should I?
yep,
should I
go ahead.
Keep going.
Okay, for the resolution approving the special land application fee schedule, everybody was in agreement with the actual, application fees. All I did is take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State.
I thought the late fee was $20 though, beyond submission deadline.
It is $20 beyond
But we have
submission.
10 days, late days, days beyond submission deadline as prescribed, if more than 60 days late. I thought we changed that to 20 and 50.
Where are you?
Fee schedule?
Application
Late
filing
application
fee.
fee under $150.
It is,
20 and 50, right?
it is 20, so, yeah, and that's just a scrivener's error.
That's fine, no
Yep,
problem.
I will change that before it actually
Okay.
goes to the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, and if you wanna flip
Sad
over
that
to
I
the
remember
actual.
these things.
Can I, so just, so I know, it's $20 per day beyond submission deadline, is and then the rest is deleted, right?
No, and then if more than 60 days late, it's $50 per day.
$50,
But I think
$50 a day.
Well, that's why we want people to get them in on time.
Oh my God.
That's what the encouraging is. I think there was for short form and long form,
Why don't we
two
just tell
different
them,
numbers.
don't bother coming to Riverhead?
We had a short form and a long form, there was 45 days, cause we do 60 day,
Right.
yeah, so,
$50 a
just,
day.
you don't
Well,
have to
I
look it
did-
up again, you
No,
have the
remember you
notes,
said
so,
do a cheat sheet, so I did a cheat sheet.
okay,
So, 100 to 700 people is a short form, it's a 90-day or 3-month review.
no, for the late application fee, I think in the late application fee, there was a different, there was 20 and 50, and then we had one for short form and long form.
Alright, let's.
I'll look
go
back at my notes, I don't have to do it right now.
Yeah, look, cause I'm
Yeah.
not sure that.
I'll,
it should be
if
in
there is a
here.
difference, then I'll
Okay.
get back to you on that.
Okay. So now I put page numbers on these, so.
Okay.
What I did is I highlighted, what we spoke about last week, so you knew, like, let me just go by page, we'll get through this quick. Page 2, there's no changes. Page 3, charitable organizations, we're gonna add it to the code, but everyone's in agreement, no changes since last week. Page 4, we added food vendor, no changes since last week. Special event, those changes were really cleanup, there was no discussion on that. Page 5, let's see, I had a typo on 3, I said it should have been 2,500, 2,500 went to 5,000, I had, I think, 5,000 only there, so I changed that. Then again, B was, there was no discussion. 2, again, the 2,500, I think I had 5,000, I changed that on 2, if I'm going too fast, please let me know.
No, I see it.
Okay, 3 is that, there was no discussion on that. Then we go to page 6, you go to paragraph 2, one time and collectively, there was no discussion on that last week. 4 was at peak we added, there was no discussion. 5, I added, and you were in agreement to be received, this is on the name, address, and phone number of the persons who will be engaged in the preparation and sale of food, and a copy of their state and or county license permit for said activity. Said license permit to be received no later than 14 days prior to the commencement of the event. Because we've had problems with the day before and I still didn't have it. So, okay, we're gonna go to page 7, there's no changes on 7. We'll go to 8, on paragraph number 18, I added town, county, and state agency, this is for the banners over the roadways. 20 is just a cleanup, rejection by the town clerk, we didn't have any discussion on that last week. Then, this is where I wanna talk to the board about, on page 9, paragraph B, the certificate of insurance. What we should keep in is the policy shall name the town as an additional insured and shall be non-cancelable without 30 days prior written notice to the town. So we're saying that we need that, the 30 days notice. Then we were talking about applications shall submit notification from their insurance company 72 hours in advance. And then the town's inability to verify insurance will result in the cancellation of the event. I spoke with Lynn Boyer of our, Arthur Gallagher insurance company this morning. She said she would not put in the 72 hours in advance. She said what happens is, with the 32-day notice, the 30-day prior notice to cancellation, they have to let us know, so I don't have to verify within 72 hours, because they already have, in 30 days, if there's any kind of cancellation, whether it's non-payment of premium or.
The insurance company is obligated to notify the town.
Exactly, however, this extra step I have, and I'll put it in the instructions when we do that the next time before 2019, in the application, is that I have to put in verbiage that we need to have, not all insurance companies automatically do that, we have to request or ask them to be notified 30 days, so I have to make sure for every certificate of insurance I get, that policy either gives me a copy of the policy that shows that we're subject to 30-day notice, or I see the endorsement that added it to an existing policy.
Okay.
So, we don't need to put the 72 hours, and I really think that probably wouldn't have worked. I don't think people are going to.
I think that covers what we were trying to do, so
Right.
perfect.
And I don't even think you need the town's inability to verify insurance will result in the cancellation of the event.
If we have not been notified 30 days, then they're insured,
Exactly.
so I think
Exactly.
that's what we're looking for.
So I won't accept an insurance policy that does not have a 30-day cancellation
Cancellation.
notice to the town. Okay, so the last two, sentences I'm gonna take out.
Good.
Okay, and then cost reimbursement, C, we didn't have any discussion last Thursday. Now, on D, I had added for an event to be conducted on town property. This has to do with the town may, ask an applicant to submit some kind of performance security, that if, when the event is over, that they clean up. Then you all spoke about, well, possibly because of these potential fees, with these late fees and filing, that we may want to impose a $300, refundable. So I did add that to, further down, so if we're going to go that way, I wanna keep this out, I don't wanna add it, so if I can bring your
Yeah.
attention to
Cause we
page.
just struck the 72 hours, so the
Right.
$300 was that if they didn't provide the,
But you also have the late filing fees, maybe, you know what I mean, like,
no, it was if
Well,
they didn't.
if they're filing, if it's a late filing fee, then
Right.
they'll have to produce,
25%
they'll have, when they file, they'll be paying that late fee right then and there.
right, okay.
25% of the applicable fee.
Okay,
Right.
all right. Also, if there's an amendment, we have that 25% if the town does not request the amendment, but that I guess they can also pay at the time that they submit the amended application.
But then we don't have to approve the event if they're not submitting the fees they're supposed to be doing.
Right, okay, all right, so then I'm going to leave that in. To be deducted on
Yes.
town property, you're
Yes.
gonna ask, and now if I can just switch you,
Currently have that.
yes, switch gears then, if we could, just temporarily to page, 12, paragraph E, a refundable $300 shall be required upon submission, we're gonna take that out.
Right, because it won't be required, because we're not,
Okay, so-
that was for the insurance.
Right, okay, so then we're gonna go back to number 9, page number 9, let's
think
see,
we're at 10, right?
no, we're now up to 10. Again, notification of adjoining property owners of residential zoning districts, we discussed it and there was no, you were good with that? That's again like horse owners, you know, if they have fireworks, we wanna let them know, or any kind of loud noise, so they can prepare for that. Again, B, we had possible conflict with other events, and seasonal demand, which may overtax or cause undue burden, and then we had, within 30 calendar days of the period of Memorial Day to Veterans, and we had, what was the other one, not Veterans Day, what do we have, Memorial Day
To Veterans
Labor
Day.
Day, we
Yes,
changed it
yes,
to Veterans Day. But that was done last time.
Right.
Page number 11, paragraph number 10.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
going back to 10F.
Yeah.
Where it says notification of adjoining property owners in residential zoning districts upon filing an application, blah, blah, blah. It goes through everything, written notice that a special event has been filed for parcels abutting, and then it says, said notice shall include the date, time, and location of the proposed special event, and proof of mailing shall be submitted to the chief fire marshal in the form of an affidavit with postal receipts annexed in order to constitute a complete application. That's not right, because the event hasn't been approved yet, so it's gotta be after the application's been deemed complete and been approved,
Approve pending.
and then from the time it's approved, you know what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying?
I don't,
It says upon a constitute, an affidavit with postal receipts annexed in order to constitute a complete application. They've already submitted a complete application to the clerk. That
Well, this
we
is
Well,
always-
if the fire I think if the fire
It needs to
marshal,
say something else
but-
besides.
but the fire marshal can't there's no mechanism for the fire marshal to require them to do this, because it's not every event, right? So they have to submit an application, and then the fire marshal, when they're
He'll
in
make
their
that
review, makes that determination. If the fire marshal notifies the person having the event that this is required, the application will now not be considered complete until they have done this.
Right.
So it says, in order to constitute a complete application, because we put another something onto their application.
So if the fire marshal then tells them, okay, you have to send out the certified letters to the adjoining property owners, and then, you know, so they send out the notifications, and then one of the homeowners calls and says, I don't want them to have fireworks, does that mean that
Well, no, they're just required to
application
notify
stops.
them, they're not required to have them make an agreement.
Right.
But the property owner then has the ability, because we still have to approve this by resolution, the property owner can then come to the town board meeting where the resolution is on for approval,
So-
can then come, and that's when they would voice their
Well,
concerns.
what I think it should say is, said notice shall include the date, time, and location of the proposed special event, and proof of mailing shall be submitted in the chief fire marshal in the form of an affidavit with postal receipts annexed.
and that's it, get rid of an
10
order.
days prior to the event, or something to that effect, like, not upon completion. So, if the fire marshal asks for it, and then they say, okay, send it out now, and then they send it out now, and it's 60 days before the event,
That's when they have
you
to
know-
send it, that's when they have to send it out, because we can't vote on their application until it's complete. So, and part of having the complete application is to notify their neighbors. Because if we've already we haven't approved the event yet. So you put in an application, the application is complete for it to be processed.
But the fire marshal doesn't deem the application complete, the clerk does when she takes it in,
Right, but once the fire marshal deems this event to have to notify the neighbors, it then triggers that application is no longer complete
So then-
until they are notified.
So then it should say, an application will not be considered complete if the fire marshal notifies you that you have to send out these certified letters.
But that's exactly what it says, so it says, be submitted to the fire marshal in the form of an affidavit with postal receipts annexed in order to constitute a complete application.
Okay, but it's confusing to me, because we've already said that Diane will reject applications if it's not a complete
But
application.
she won't know that, if it's
I know,
fireworks.
well, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
it's something different, so it should say either prior to the town board approving it, or it should say, you know, I think if you're saying prior to constitute a complete application, they're like, what are you talking about complete application? I already went through the town clerk that said I didn't have a complete application, because I had to submit all this stuff, so I submitted everything, I had a
I think you're
complete.
overthinking it just a little bit,
No,
because
I just think that
first it says the fire marshal may, it doesn't say must, so it's still discretionary at best, so, I don't know.
I just,
See, this is the scenario, we had the horse farm again with fireworks, they said they were going to do a mailing, you know, and they were gonna let us know. I received through email just a copy of a letter, there was nothing to say it went out,
no, I get that, I get the whole
yeah, so
idea
that's,
of
I
notifying.
think that's like, the reason why this is here, you said that the language you would like to see.
I think it should just say prior to the town board, if the fire marshal deems that this is necessary, then prior to the town board approving the application, that you'll have to show the affidavit and the proof of receipts. I just think complete application is what we're calling it to get past Diane, to
You
get
would
to the fire marshal.
You would assume that this is prior to us voting on it anyway.
Yes, I
We're not
think,
voting
I
on
think
this.
it's an additional condition that's not, that the fire marshal can put on any particular application if if they so deem necessary. And so that where you have, once the fire marshal deems that this needs to happen, then that application submission is no longer considered a full application until the letters of proof of the mailing have been received. Once the letters of the mailing have been received, it then goes back to being a complete application, and the town board can then vote on it.
Okay, I disagree with that, and I, do zoning board applications and planning board applications, and where we're required to notify property owners within 200 feet, or abutting property owners, you submit the affidavit, the receipts for the mailings, everything, prior to going to the hearing or getting a vote on the application, so I think that it's,
But how would you know you needed to notify the neighbors?
the fire marshal tells them, or the administrator of the clerk's office
No,
for a special
the
permit says.
the clerk's office would have no
I'm
decision,
saying,
yeah.
for example, someone would tell them, the fire marshal in this case, you have to send out the notice to adjoining neighbors in a residential neighborhood. But you can't say in order to constitute a complete application, that's what I'm having a problem with, constitute a complete application, because Diane's already said you have a complete application, okay, now it's ready to go to Laura and the fire marshal, and then it gets to the fire marshal and he says, no, it's not a complete application unless you do this. And I just think that it needs to be worded differently, that's all. I think it needs to either say
How
that,
about if applicable?
well, it still doesn't change to constitute a complete application, so how do we fix that? Because the application's already been deemed complete at the clerk's office, and she's advanced it to you, and you've advanced it to the fire
But where I
marshal,
have a
to the police.
problem with is if the town clerk deems it complete, which happens a lot, because they don't really go through it. They say, alright, it has certificate of insurance, it has this, they're not really like examining it. They think it's complete, but when I get it, the insurance is not good, or they didn't give me all of the members of their corporation, or police said you can't have it that day because we have something else going on that day, and fire marshal said, well, you're having
Oh, we gotta go
fireworks, we
back to
don't know.
square one.
So, that's what I'm saying, it's not really complete when Diane gets it. At first glance, it's complete, but when you actually go through it, line by line, and I'm just telling you the reality of it, and then we'll word it however you want, but this is, in real life, this is what happens. You think it's complete, you have an application, it's signed, you have the authorizations, you have your certificate of insurance, you have your diagram, okay, it's complete.
Right, we can say
Now-
phase one. Phase one is complete.
Yeah, because
And
now
there
when
may
it
be a
comes to
phase
all the
2 or
different people
phase
like
3.
me and fire marshal and police, we can say, no, this can't go on until this happens, and no, this isn't going on, and we do it all
So
the
you
time.
accept it pending review, that's
Right.
all.
So,
Right.
how about if we just start up and say,
What you do, I'll
In
accept it
order-
pending review.
for an application to move forward, if the fire marshal deems that it's applicable, that you notify adjoining property owners, you must do that in order for the, resolution to be adopted by the town board.
You're gonna put that in the code?
Can we put pending review and move on? I think we're in agreement, right? Let's move on.
So just,
I think we're belaboring
In
this.
order to, pending review,
Why doesn't everybody just digest this on their own a little bit, and if you want changes, you can send it off.
Yeah, my head's spinning right now,
All
I
right,
don't think
go
I
ahead,
wanna
Laura.
have a chapter
Okay.
90 again ever as long
so
as.
if we go to B1, we just discussed that Memorial Day to Veterans Day. Again, page 11, paragraph number 10, that's just cleaning it up. We go to page 12, I added, well, let me see, late applications shall incur a fee of $20 per day. Beyond the submission deadline will be accepted as set forth in 250, oh, that's a dollar sign, that should be section. 255-9B. And then I added, cause that's what was spoken about last, on the 25th, any short form application submitted within 45 days of the proposed commencement of the event will be denied. Any long form application submitted within 60 days of the proposed commencement of the event will be denied.
Perfect.
Okay,
Alright,
so
let's
that,
go.
we did that.
And then E's
E we
deleted.
took out because we got rid of the 72-hour requirement. And then, again, cleaning up on page 13, if providing alcohol, it's just cleaning up, we're also gonna put it in the application, cause people don't read the
Right.
code, they read the application, so we're gonna take excerpts of it out and put it in when I revamp the application, and then, we had our deputy town attorney put in for the, penalties. So I think we are done.
Woo-hoo! Get up and do the happy dance.
I vote no.
Laura, thank you so much for all your work on this.
You're very welcome. Now, if I could just ask, everyone got an email, and I have copies here again. The Holiday Light Show that's gonna happen in November, that we've already approved, he subsequently, after the approval of his, chapter 255 application, asked for signs. Okay, this won't be long, I promise. This Jim.
Is this for the holiday show?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait.
Okay, here we go. Here and here.
Oh, it's great.
He wants to put in, I'll generalize it, he wants to put in signs, if you go to the third page of this, you'll see a really horrible photocopy. There's 13 signs in all that he wants to put up within the town of Riverhead. If you go to the last page of what I just handed you, our town code states, temporary special event signs, one temporary special event sign may be permitted at the location of the special event, and no more than 2 additional signs may be permitted at other locations other than the event site, and shall be posted no more than 14 days prior to the event. However, if you go down to G number 2, it says if more than one special event sign is desired, approval must be first received from the town board. Approval of multiple temporary signs may be made as part of the special event permit application. So he didn't make that part of a special event, I guess he didn't think about it, so you could either deny it and say we're gonna stay to the 1+2 and not have 13 within the town.
How big are these?
These are pictures of what he proposes to put up. The biggest one is 4x4, which is 16 square feet, and the code allows 50 square feet. So he's way below the square footage requirement.
The only thing,
Where is he putting them up?
You have maps
Got a
all
map,
over,
yeah,
there's a
look.
map on the third page. Oh, here you go, Judy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love it.
the only thing that I would like to request is when he was here, we had talked about him co-marketing our downtown and our restaurants and things downtown.
Right.
I would like to see that somewhere on this sign to promote our downtown restaurants and shops,
He's got
our
signs
farmers
way bigger,
market.
too.
He's putting up signs in the county right away and in the,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how do we approve that?
Well,
Has
we can
he-
only do what Riverhead allows.
He's
He's
on
gonna have to
Sunrise
get a
Highway,
state or
Tuesday.
county permit from them.
On the state road, on the county road, on the,
That's,
This would just pertain to the Riverhead, road
give us like,
section.
give us signs.
So he just said it's, you know,
So if we
we
give him
do take a
permission for signs,
deposit.
that the signs should be that he needs to receive, all of the approvals for whatever type of road he's on,
right,
so.
okay.
And how long will they be up, did you say 2 weeks?
Well, no, he has to take them down by code, he has to take them down, I think, in 14 days after, let's see.
14.
Yeah, no more than 14 days prior to the event, and then he's gotta take them down, where is that in the code?
He's gonna start putting them up today.
This is undirected, plywood,
November
vacant
1st.
gate level. Oh, shall be removed within 5 days after the event. So
So-
14 days prior, 5 after.
and what if he doesn't take them down?
I think he has to give, he still needs a sign permit from the
Well, then
town.
we can
Well,
write
we do bonds
a
for
town
political
code ticket
signs,
for
they
violation of 251. He goes to justice court.
He doesn't get his application fee back. Just like if we buy the permit for political signs, if you don't have them taken down, you don't get your money returned.
I don't think we're requiring him to do that.
No.
Deposit
There is
for
no
the
deposit
signs.
on this one. Political signs maybe, but not this, not
Alright,
temporary
so
special.
ask him
Well,
for
we'll
the,
certainly know if he
ask him for
doesn't take 'em
for
down.
deposit.
Ask him for, well, maybe we should put that in the code under the temporary signs for, you know, a $500 deposit if you don't take the
We
signs
need town
down
board
5 days
approval to
after
put
the
these
event,
signs
we
up,
will.
why can't we condition it in the approval?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, look at H's fine for political sign.
Need
Candidate
town board
displaying
approval to
on
put more than
residential.
2 signs
Shall
up.
post a bond security amount 200 per candidate, the sign displaying an image of
We
the
need a
candidate.
resolution to approve,
I mean,
town
if-
board approval to put more than 2 signs up, we can condition it in the resolution that upon completion, that these signs will be removed.
Right, and if he doesn't, and Geo has to take
Well,
them
then
down,
they'll never have
or
a light show
Buildings and
Riverhead
Grounds has to
again.
take them down?
I don't know.
But can't we write a ticket in justice court in violation of 251?
I'm sure you
If the guy doesn't live here in New York, then we can't even serve him to come and show up in justice court, so it's,
We'll go to his radio station.
I'm
you
not
know,
worried about
I
it.
think that you should get a deposit, just like you're required with political signs. If there's gonna be temporary
So
signs,
in the
you get a deposit.
in the resolution to do this, let's have a requirement to put a
Let me see if
deposit
my
that's
wedding is here.
refundable when the signs are taken down.
Okay.
And this way
See,
we'll make sure that
normally-
the beginning down in 5 days.
Normally, if someone wants signs, I'm gonna start asking people, and maybe you should, in the town clerk's office, if they're gonna have a big event like this, they really should have their request for signs, if it's an additional more than what the town code allows,
Okay.
as part of their application. Because then we don't have to do a second resolution and, you know, and you can make the determination when you
Yeah, the
approve it.
application has to be beefed up a little bit because there's so
Where,
many
you and I are
things.
gonna work on it,
Yeah.
it's huge,
Right.
it's probably as much, if
Right.
not worse than this, it's huge.
Because sometimes there's 10, so they need the 10 permit, and then additionally from the design permit, so there's a lot of, multi-layers on this.
Yeah, and all of those applications should be part of the packet that you give them.
Exactly, they should be aware right from the get-go.
The applicant on this specific, the holiday light show, he's on Waverly Avenue in Holtzville, so he is servable.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, in
To-
the future, it's something, another facet to look at.
Well, we have temporary signs in the chapter 255, so you should just say $500 deposit will be required for temporary signs.
Well, in the 255, we have, it's really
It
very,
says banners and signs
yeah,
are
banners and
permitted,
sign, right,
as long
but
as you
it's
get a town,
very-
county, or state, or whatever's
Right.
applicable on the road.
but there's nothing
But
about,
there's nothing about a
Deposit,
deposit
no.
if they don't take the sign down, and we have to take the sign down.
So, what am I telling him now? I know you want some
You need a-
local
you-
businesses endorsed on the signs.
I just think he had said when he came here that he was, you know, we had said about, you know, downtown and that we wanted people to come to the restaurants, and he said he certainly would be supporting that, and he would be helping to encourage people to go there. So I think if he's putting all these signs down out here, he can have something about visiting downtown for, you know, at Christmas time or at the holiday time. Don't forget to, you know, see downtown, we have a lot of restaurants, things, and, you know, downtown, I think we have the bonfire downtown on a Saturday, we have the farmer's market downtown, so I
Yeah.
think you can cross market
That
for
would
it.
be a good idea to advertise the bonfire downtown at that. Jim, you got enough candy canes and hot cocoa?
I don't buy them, Bid does that, but
I'll give you some wording for it, let me think about it a
But
little
if
bit.
you.
I was just gonna say, whatever he beefs up and puts in here,
yeah,
I
something
don't feel
fine,
comfortable approving, and I'd like you guys to take a
Okay.
look at it and see
Alright.
if you like it.
We can just email it
Okay,
out.
I think that's a good idea, and if he had on his signs, you know, visit bid.com for downtown events or something to that effect. And,
No,
you
I
know,
agree.
if the bid wants to put together a flyer or something to hand people when they're pulling out, then they
What
can.
about like Atlantis and,
Yeah,
you know,
Let me just let's call the bid and just see how they wanna,
okay. Cause he's,
it's gotta be something quick, easy, it's signs, people aren't gonna read like a massive thing, so
Right.
we'll
Well,
just
if I
do
was a
something.
business owner, I'd have stuff to pass out to these cars as they're going through there anyway.
okay.
When you get done looking at the lights, come on down and really get the spirits, you know.
So then if I'm correct in proceeding forward, I should call him back and tell him to add these things to the signs, that you don't have a problem with if there's 13 signs on town roads, the amount of them? And,
I'm okay
They're on
with this,
13 on our town roads, right?
until a lot of them in
you know,
other.
it's hard to tell with
They're mostly on
this
the state and the county.
diagram, but of course, we can't give permission for someone else's road,
I
so.
don't know where that came
right,
from.
he needs to get the
Right.
applicable
Right,
permission
and
for.
I think
That's up to
he's
him,
aware of
that's-
that,
Yeah.
but he just kinda put where, all the signs where he wants to put, so,
Right.
Alright,
okay.
We're gonna be responsible.
But it says in the code that
Mhm.
they have to get the applicable permits from the town, the county, or the
Right,
so.
yeah,
That's not our concern.
so he would have to apply for permits with the building department for his signs, which he's aware of that, okay. Alright, that
But he-
sounds good, so.
But he wants to put the signs up today's November 1st.
No, I know, that's why he just emailed me yesterday, and he's like,
Oh,
did
so
you
he's
get
down
any
there on the
word
spot,
yet?
he's way ahead of it.
And I said, I'm gonna see the board tomorrow, see if I can ask them.
It's like my country fair application. I don't know,
Okay.
Okay, so we
All right.
can go forward for November 7th for the other two?
yes,
Okay, and I'll make those minor changes and we'll be good to go.
alright, so ready to move on to resolutions. Authorizes application to Suffolk County for HUD home funds and authorizes supervisors to execute grant agreement request for home funds.
I gotta get my, computer up here, it died.
This would be the department, not the, CDA, would be the, Town of Riverhead, resolution designating Calverton Aviation and Technology LLC as a qualified and eligible sponsor for the purchase and development of approximately 1,643 plus minus acres located within the premise known as the Enterprise Park at Calverton, EPCAL, consistent with the goals and objectives of the Planned Development PD zoning district adopted on August 16th, 2016. The Town of Riverhead's comprehensive master plan is amended on August 2nd, 2016, and the Town of Riverhead Calverton Enterprise Park Urban Renewal Plan as amended on August 2nd, 2016.
So
I
moved.
thought that
Oh, I'm
we
sorry,
were
did we
doing
take
this
it off?
during the day town board meeting, I thought
This,
that
I don't know why this is in here, this is a CDA resolution.
Sorry to,
Go ahead.
to my credit, since you guys only decided we were doing 6 o'clock now, I put it in there because I wanted to make sure I was going through the process. We can put it on for the 6 o'clock meeting, because we'll have to have a separate agenda, I guess, for 6 o'clock.
Yep.
So, at the least you've seen it now, which is good.
Right.
So Diane and I can just make sure we'll make a separate agenda.
Yeah, and it
For
also,
6 o'clock.
you gotta change the resolution to read Town of Riverhead Community Development Agency, the headline.
Appoint a temporary student intern to the Town Engineers Department. Ratify-
Who's that? Oh, Edward Againian, okay.
Okay, ratifies the appointment of an accountant.
Oh.
It's an accountant trainee. Authorizes the creation and appointment of members to an open space and environmental advisory committee.
Yeah, I'm just gonna talk
What
about that
members?
1 minute. I did talk to everybody individually, the open space committee hasn't been meeting as often, we wanted to keep the open space committee, and we had a lot of citizens interested in an environmental committee, so we are rolling the two together and moving forward with it. I think it's an exciting thing.
And we're looking for members of this.
Yes, we're gonna put out a press release.
Okay.
Authorizes shotgun hunting for deer on town property at Enterprise Park at Calverton, Suffolk County Tax Max 600-135-1-7.33, and 1751 Sound Avenue, Calverton, Suffolk County Tax Max 600-60-1-2, from January 7th, 2019 to January 31st, 2019, weekdays only, excluding Wednesdays, sunrise to sunset.
Run, Vandy,
So,
run.
yeah, on Wednesdays, those deer can run free. Appoints members to the Riverhead Industrial Development Agency.
I thought we were gonna have a meeting with, Tom Caruso.
Yeah, I have a meeting with him Monday.
Tom did a telephone interview.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was away.
Okay, okay,
Um,
wasn't aware.
Yeah, so, next, what do we have? Authorizes notice to bidders, Hotel Indigo Sewer Extension Contract, Sewer Construction,
So the apprenticeship program is being used for the first time for the water district $1 million improvement for Peconic Care, just so that everybody knows.
Yeah.
And it would also be used for this.
correct.
So
Authorize,
whoever's bidding, make sure you bid, including whatever the cost is going to be for the apprenticeship program.
well, it's actually a reduction in cost, because the apprentices are usually paid under the journey tradesman.
For their additional staff, cause they're learning.
Authorize notice to bidders, upgrade of the sewer treatment plant, Enterprise Park at Calverton. Module number 1, contract G, general mechanical construction, contract P, plumbing construction, contract E, electrical construction, contract S, force main recharge bed construction.
Wow.
10 is accepts donation of benches and cement planters from Tanger Outlet Center. These are some of the benches, from some of the CDBG money we got. They did the road, behind the community garden at Grangeville Park, and they are doing, some improvements in front of the community garden there. And the benches that we have there are going to be, more in uniform with the benches that are in the rest of downtown there. So they've donated those to, do that as that moves forward. And hopefully that'll be done before the end of this year, as well as, Benjamin Place over there, the paper street, is getting
Nice.
redone also, so it'll look nice down there.
Used to
gonna
have
look
water
great.
out of my basement.
Authorizes supervisor to execute a memorandum of understanding with North Fork Animal Welfare League, Inc.
Is this a ratification?
This is
So-
just to, I believe, go into contract negotiation.
So was the care and maintenance of the land discussed? I know that it's in the agreement that the town will be no longer be responsible for the shelter itself, but is there any mention in here about the maintenance of the land?
The contract is up, I believe, the end of
February.
February, and that would be a part of the contract negotiation.
Okay, but for now, up until
It is my
February,
understanding,
we're
I
gonna be-
will double check on that, but it's my understanding we're not doing it at the minute.
No, we're not doing it at Scotia.
Yeah.
We may have to go up to our shelter and mow it and whatever, although there's no dogs there. We're still in charge of that, though, but not the new one.
And engineering's going over there to assess what conditions the building's are in.
You
Can I
skipped
just
one
back
line.
up
That
to
was-
the last one real quick,
Norman
I do
Keel?
wanna say, yeah, I'm gonna say at the town board meeting, but I wanna say thank you to Matt Pendleton, who donated from this,
Read the resolution, cause I skipped this one.
oh, I wondered, I was
Yeah,
like,
I
"What is that?"
skipped over it, sorry.
Ratifies acceptance of donation of plans from Norman Keel Nurseries. This is Matt Pendleton, who serves on the Ag Advisory. They donated about 400 mums that are planted all around Town Hall, the police station, and on the circle, and Matt simply wanted to beautify the town, so.
It looks
big thank-
beautiful.
It looks great.
Where is, Norman Keel Nurseries?
It's on Aldrich,
Okay.
Just trying to see if it says it here.
and our B and G department picked up the plants and planted them all, so thanks to them too.
Alright, now I'm lost where I am. Okay, I'm on 13, right?
Yep.
Authorizes the town clerk to publish and post notice for public hearing regarding US HUD Community Development Block Grant CDBG 2019 funds.
Oh, we're getting started already.
We are always looking for that. Authorize retention of the law firm of Siegel and Sittler, PLLC.
We need to see the contract and what the rate is.
I haven't seen these before because they just came up. I believe that this is on in executive session, so we can get it done. Authorize agreement between the town of Riverhead and the county of Suffolk for funds under the Stop DWI program, and authorizes execution of the agreement by the supervisors January 1st, 2017 through December 31st, 2018. Authorize agreement between the town of Riverhead and the county of Suffolk for funds under the Stop DWI program, and authorizes execution of the agreement by the supervisor October 1st, 2015 through September 30th, 2016. That's a long time, Pam.
Bob said those dates are correct.
We didn't do it then?
Authorize a settlement of lawsuit commenced by the Board of Education of the Riverhead Central School District in the town of Riverhead against Culinary Arts Riverhead LLC. Sets time and date of town of Riverhead's 19th annual bonfire and holiday celebration.
How they?
Appoints members to the Veterans Advisory Committee.
We had somebody that resigned, so then we're appointing Terry Nigel.
No, wait, look at, look at 130.
Awards bid for lubricant items. 21
I almost
is,
slipped past me, get it?
authorization
That's
to.
why we don't want verbatim on the minutes.
We talk about me.
That's what we
Jane.
keep saying.
Good point.
Authorization to reject bids for heating fuel and purchase, said commodity through GML 10316. Refunding bond resolution dated November 7th, 2018, a resolution authorizing the issuance pursuant to section 90 and or section 90.10 of the local finance law of refunding bonds of the town of Riverhead, Suffolk County, New York, to be designated substantially public improvement refunding serial bonds and providing for other matters in relation thereto, and the payment of the bonds to be refunded thereby. Authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement authorizing the town to accept funds from Suffolk County Office for the Aging to supplement the town's expanded in-home services for the elderly program. Authorizes grant application for $50,000, New York State SAM grant for Town of Riverhead, Town Hall HVAC replacement, that is through Senator Laval, has, secured funding for us for that. Ratifies the appointment of, interpreter for Police Department and Justice Court. Attendance of 2 police department employees to the, what is this, CPTED? I don't know what that stands for, Crime Prevention through Environmental Design Certification Seminar. CPTED. Authorize the supervisor to execute agreement with Riverhead Soccer Club for training and referee services for Town of Riverhead Police Athletic League Girls and Boys Soccer Program for 2018 calendar year. Riverhead Sewer District Emergency Generator Budget Adjustment. Amends resolution number 62 regarding agreement with Long Island Telecommunications and Electronic Services, Inc. Extends bid contract non-pro-tunc for Charter Coach Transportation 2018. Good at the years now. Authorization to reject bids for heating, okay. Awards bid for streetlight and traffic maintenance parts. Sewer district chemical budget adjustment. Authorized notice to bidders, installation of water mains and I can never say this. Appurtenances, Riverview Lofts, FKA Georgia Green, Riverhead Water District Project Number, Riverhead, Water District 17-52.
I'll say that word, you do the Roman number, no.
Alright, alright, we got a deal.
This also has to be, I hope that when we're putting out these bids, that we're including the apprenticeship language in there, so that they know that they have to reach out to the unions and get the apprentices on board.
I don't know how much that,
If it's more than
Yeah.
100,000, then we have to do that.
more, no, I think it's more than
Oh,
250,000.
did we do it for 250?
I think we did 250, it's 100,000 square feet or 250.
Right, yep.
Authorizes settlement of legal action in the matter of Town of Riverhead versus John Engelhauser, 212 Creek Road, Wading River, New York. Authorizes settlement of legal action in the matter of Town of Riverhead versus Lon and Anest, 148 Creek Road, Wading River, New York. Budget adjustment for building R&M. Authorization to extend contract with Long Island Cauliflower Association for Downflake Extra 83 to 87% calcium chloride. Engineering services in the connection to Plan 2 rehabilitation capital project number 81-855, budget adoption. Terminates a detention attendant. Ratifies and accepts the resignation of a crossing guard. Authorize town clerk to publish a post notice to bidders for water service materials. Riverhead Water District budget adjustment. Awards bid for calcium hypochlorite tablets for use in the Riverhead Water District. Now, would this be a CDA one? CDA authorizes the chairwoman to execute a professional service agreement with, SFA LLC for the preparation of a feasibility, is this supposed to be on here, John?
You know what, let me verify.
Yeah, just verify, because I don't know that there was,
I know the board had some questions about the SFA agreement, I think there was.
and I think there was also a question about, the cost and how that was getting paid for.
Well, we have to really commit
Correct. No, I know, I'm not sure why that's on there, so that may get pulled, we'll see. Authorizes supervisor to execute a retainer agreement with Lane, Bubka Esquire of Bubka Law Group for legal services for the Riverhead Youth Court 2018-2019 year.
He does such a great job with those kids. He and his wife.
I remember when he was a DJ.
Alright, first and second to go into executive session for personnel matters surrounding funeral leave for an employee, discussions regarding raises for employees.
This for personnel, discussion regarding.
Personnel discussion regarding a promotion, contractual discussion regarding a possible contract with an investor, matters regarding negotiation of an easement, litigation is Oak Hills versus Town of Riverhead, Woodson, Town of Riverhead versus Walter Gabrielson, and Anthony Capitola versus Town of Riverhead.
And before we go into executive session, there might be another resolution that's coming out. The health department is reviewing a couple of applications now. because we're trying to deed the recreation trail on the perimeter of the EPCAL property from the CDA to the town of Riverhead. And they're concerned because Berman Boulevard is not a town road right now, that there might be access issues with sewer and water. So they wanna know that the town of Riverhead will give an easement for sewer and water to access the undeveloped property that will be retained by the CDA. So, once we get clarification back from the health department as to which language they would like to see, it's really just to provide sewer and water over the rec trail or under the rec trail to get to the property that could someday maybe be developed.
Okay. Oh, yeah, just one other note, the helicopter meeting, the FAA has agreed to meet, and hold a meeting here in Riverhead, and that will be on November 14th at Riverhead Middle School, 600 Harrison Avenue, from 7 PM till 9 PM. It's gonna be a workshop format. The public will also, at that time, can submit written comment. The FAA, if there are people come in and do comment to them, they have not committed to transcribing the oral comments to become part of the record, so I urge everybody that comes to this meeting to also bring something in writing that they can submit as part of the record. And we're hoping to have as many people attend it, to let the FAA know that we do not want these helicopters flying over our town here, or, the North and South Fork the way they are. They should be taking an all-water route, so.
And I'm gonna jump on, add to that, please spread the word if you are in an area that really gets pounded with helicopters. Please spread the word within your neighborhood, and, I think numbers are important this evening. That a lot of people turn out and we show people that, the North Shore route is certainly not working for our area. We need to get these helicopters flying over an all-water route over the Atlantic.
And thank you, Congressman Zeldin, for actually forcing them to have a meeting, to listen to the public.
And tomatoes will be supplied for throwing purposes.
Alrighty. It's like a marathon.
Oh.